Guys, what the Bible says about Gaza is truly shocking.
This is what the Lord says. For 3 sins of Gaza, even for 4, I will not relent, because she took captive whole communities and sold them to Edom. I will send fire on the walls of Gaza that will consume her fortresses. I will destroy the king of Ashdod and the one who holds the scepter in Ashkelon. I will turn my hand against Ekron till the last of the Philistines are dead, says the sovereign Lord.
But if we will study the history, we'll quickly find out that the destruction of Gaza is not unique. It happened over and over.
You who do what he commands, seek righteousness, seek humility. Perhaps you will be sheltered on the day of the Lord's anger. Gaza will be abandoned and Ashkelon left in ruins. At midday, Ashdod will be emptied and Ekron uprooted. Woe to you who live by the sea, you Kerathite people. The word of the Lord is against you, Canaan, land of the Philistines. He says, I will destroy you, and none will be left. The land by the sea will become pastures, having wells for shepherds and pens for flocks. That land will belong to the remnant of the people of Judah. Gaza will lose her king, and Ashkelon will be deserted. A mongrel people will occupy Ashdod, and I will put an end to the pride of the Philistines. I will take the blood from their mouths, the forbidden food from between their teeth. Those who are left will belong to our God and become a clan in Judah, and Ekron will be like the Jebusites. See how the waters are rising in the north. They will become an overflowing torrent. They will overflow the land and everything in it, the towns and those who live in them. The people will cry out. All who dwell in the land will wail. At the sound of the hooves of galloping steeds, at the noise of enemy chariots, and the rumble of their wheels. Parents will not turn to help their children. Their hands will hang limp. For the day has come to destroy all the Philistines and to remove all survivors who could help Tyre and Sidon. The Lord is about to destroy the Philistines, the remnant from the coasts of Caphtor. Gaza will shave her head in mourning. Ashkelon will be silenced. You remnant on the plain, how long will you cut yourselves? Alas, sword of the Lord, how long till you rest? Return to your sheath. Cease and be still. But how can it rest when the Lord has commanded it, when he has ordered it to attack Ashkelon and the coast?
Okay guys, so a lot has been said. We heard a lot of prophecies against the territory we know today as the Gaza Strip. And there are 10 major destructions of Gaza in history that I would like us to talk about today. So first, let's do a very quick summary of all the destructions that happened in history that we will talk in this video. And we begin with Egypt. The year is 1479 BC. This is when Egypt sends its forces to Canaan to stop the rebellion that is happening there. And on its way, of course, Gaza is destroyed. Next, we have the conquest of Canaan by the tribes of Israel. And as you remember in the Bible, it says that Joshua and the Israelites did not conquer all the territories that they were supposed to. They did not, for example, conquer the kingdom of the Philistines, where Gaza was located. But if we travel about 400 years later, we will see a major destruction to Gaza caused by the judge Samson. To see the third destruction of Gaza, we have to travel to the year 720, when Assyria becomes a world power. Assyria is followed by another empire called the Babylonian Empire, which causes even greater destruction to Gaza and the whole Philistine territories. Actually, this is the end of the Philistine kingdom. And then, of course, we have the Persian Empire, and not much is happening here as far as the destruction of Gaza. Gaza is already destroyed by Babylon, so it takes time to rebuild it. And slowly, Gaza starts to rebuild. But then another empire shows up on the world stage. Alexander the Great becomes the greatest general in history destroying Gaza, massacring Gaza that doesn't want to surrender to his rule. That said, his kingdom, his empire is very short-lived, and after his death, it is divided into several regions. To follow the history, the kingdoms that interest us are the Ptolemaic kingdom and the Seleucid kingdom. Eventually, the Seleucid kingdom took control of the Holy Land with the Jews living in it. But not going much into details, the Jews rebelled against their Greek rulers. And the rebellion was very successful because it enabled the Jews to create its independent kingdom, the Hashmonean kingdom. And it is at that time that Gaza is destroyed again, this time by the Jews who kill the inhabitants of Gaza who are Greeks at the time. There is no more Philistines, there are Greeks living in Gaza. So the Greeks are out of the Holy Land, but soon another empire emerges, which will have a huge impact on the history of Israel. And during the reign of the Roman Empire, Gaza really doesn't get destroyed that much. But to see another big destruction of Gaza, we actually have to travel a long time, about 1,000 years to the future, to the year 1100. This is a very turbulent time in history where many massacres are happening in the region. You have the Islamic states fighting each other and the Christian states fighting the Islamic states. However, the massacre of Gaza happens in 1100 when the Crusaders kill the inhabitants, the Muslim inhabitants of Gaza. And at that time, you had really a lot of killings. The Christians were killing the Muslims were killing the Christians. So you had a lot of blood which was flowing through the Holy Land at that time. Continuing, another destruction happened in the 13th century, which is far less known. And we're talking about the Mongol invasion. So the Mongols were a little bit like locusts. They came and really devoured everything on their way. And this is what happened to Gaza. They didn't really occupy that territory for a very long time, but they caused huge destruction to the region, which was then occupied by the Mamluks. The next event that we're gonna discuss may surprise you because it involves a very famous guy, Napoleon. Yes, Napoleon was active in the Middle East, and as he was fighting to disrupt the British trade routes, fighting also the Ottoman Empire, he also did some damage to Gaza. The damage was not as severe as in previous instances. However, it is quite interesting that Napoleon himself was also destroying Gaza. I think not a lot of people know about that. Afterwards, we have another damage done to Gaza during First World War. This time, it is the British that are fighting the Ottomans who are controlling this area. And during the First World War, there were 3 major battles between the Ottoman Empire and the British Empire in the area of Gaza. And the byproduct to the battles was, of course, damage to Gaza and the area around it. Eventually, the British were successful in their campaign and they were able to defeat the Ottoman Empire. And finally, we come to the modern conflict between Israel and Hamas. So, we should never forget that it was Hamas who attacked Israel on October 7th, 2023. On this day, Hamas, who the people of Gaza elected to govern them, attacked Israel from all sides. Israel responded because it had to, and this is the genesis of today's conflict. And we must also understand that much of the destruction that is happening to Gaza right now is because Hamas is hiding in the civilian structures. We'll get back to this issue at the end of this video. So let's summarize all the destructions of Gaza so far. So here is a graph. On your left, you can see all the people and nations that throughout the ages caused destruction to the city of Gaza. And on your right, you have the people that lived in the city of Gaza at the time of its destruction. For me, the most interesting thing is that throughout the ages, you had different people, different nations living in the city of Gaza. So it wasn't always like we have today, like the people of Gaza, Muslims that lived and forever were living in the city. No, that's not true. There were other people living in the city before. So the first people we know of that lived in the land today we know as Israel were the Canaanites, and we know this thanks to the Egyptian records. This is the people that lived there when Egypt attacked Canaan, a land controlled by Egypt before the rebellion, who wanted to control those territories because they were important trade routes. You see, Egypt wanted to keep the trade going north, and you had to control Canaan to do so. Therefore, when the Canaanites rebelled and joined the king of Kadesh, it was a big problem for the Egyptians, who didn't want to lose the control over this territory. They had to do something. So what do? Well, they decide to teach those Canaanites a lesson, and on their way to face the king of Kadesh, they decimate almost every city that stands on their way. Obviously, this also includes Gaza, which stands on the way of the Egyptian army. The final confrontation between Egypt and the king of Kadesh happens next to Megiddo, and the battle is won decisively by Pharaoh, who defeats the king of Kadesh. The battle at Megiddo becomes one of the most famous battles of the ancient Near East, and becomes also a foreshadow of many battles that will happen in this location. Okay, but let's return to our graph. So we talked about the Canaanites, now let's talk about the Philistines, because the next people that also lived in Gaza were the Philistines, and they are different from the Canaanites. And the difference is that the Philistines are not native. They are invaders that invaded this territory from the place we know today as Greece. And some scholars say that the Philistines are part of the people we identify as the Sea Peoples, because they came from the sea and caused great damage to the natives that lived in the Levant, in Egypt, and the territory we know today as Syria. And whereas in other places like Egypt and the north, they were able to get rid of them after a while, in Canaan, they stayed for quite a while. For how long, you may ask? Well, for about 600 years. So from 1200 BC, that's when the invasion happened, and till 601, when they were finally wiped out. However, during their reign over those territories, there were several destructions of Gaza that I already mentioned in this video. So, for example, we have the destruction done by Judge Samson. So this is about 1100 BC, and at that time Gaza is a fairly big developed city, and of course it is the center of a pagan worship. The 3D renders you see now are my 3D models that were modeled on the remains of a temple found in the city of Ekron. So this is how a Philistine temple could have looked like. So I believe we know the story quite well. Samson is the individual that destroys the temple. The temple is of the god Dagon, and Samson is given an extraordinary strength from God to destroy this temple and also kill all the Philistines that were in it, so about 3,000 people, as we read in the Bible. The destruction of the temple did not destroy, did not eliminate the Philistines, but it created a huge dent in their power and prestige. This collapse of the temple is also a sign, is a symbol of the constant fight between the Israelites and the Philistines, who were the arch enemies of the people of God. Yet it wasn't the Israelites that were to be the instrument that would eliminate the Philistines. They sticked around for a really long time until they were defeated and wiped out by an external power. That said, although the people of God do not destroy the Philistines, their destruction is foretold in the Bible. So here you can see all the prophecies you heard at the beginning of this video, and they all refer to the destruction of Gaza or the territory that was ruled by the Philistines. And here you can see all the prophets that wrote about this destruction. So the first one that mentions Gaza's tremendous fall is Amos. He writes those words around 760 BC, so when both Israel and the kingdom of Judah are still around. And this is why a lot of people believe that he is actually predicting the Assyrian destruction of Gaza, because those words are written just before the Assyrian invasion of the Levant. Then we have the prophets Zephaniah and Jeremiah who write after the Assyrian invasion. And here you can see the years that the warnings against Gaza were probably written. And the next empire that does huge destruction to the whole region is the Babylonian Empire. Babylon crushes the Philistine territories, crushes the Philistine kingdom in 605 BC. So around the time that Jeremiah writes his warnings. And the destruction done by Babylon is not like the destruction done by Assyria. It is much greater, and it is the final destruction of the Philistines. After that, there is no more kingdom of the Philistines. And this is a key point to remember, that after Babylon destroys Philistia, this is the end. There is no more Philistines in history. They are gone, they are destroyed, there is nothing left of them. And I'm stressing this because some people still believe that the modern people that live in Gaza, that some people call the Palestinians, some people believe that they are the ancient Philistines, but it's not true, because the Philistines are gone forever and they are just not here anymore. The only thing left of the Philistines we have today are the bones, and the DNA taken out of those bones confirms that they are not native of the land and they come from the Aegean region. So the DNA of the Philistines matches the DNA that is found in the area of today's Greece. Okay, so the Philistines are terminated after the Babylonian destruction of Philistia, which happens in 605. But there are still prophets prophesying, foretelling the destruction of Gaza and the Philistine territories after that date. But before we will move forward, let me explain something, because it may cause some confusion. So if we're talking about dates and we're using dates that refer to the period before current era, so BC, if we go forward, then the numbers go down until we reach AD, so current era, and then the numbers actually go up. This is how it works. So it may be confusing because 605 BC is actually before 500 BC, for example. So now you can see the problem. Prophet Ezekiel and Zechariah write about the destruction of Gaza, write about the destruction of Philistia, and this is after the kingdom of Philistia is already destroyed forever by Babylon. So how do we explain that? Well, we must understand that the kingdom of Philistia was never destroyed by the people of Israel. The Philistines became the arch enemies of the people of Israel, and they existed for almost 600 years. So when the prophet Ezekiel and Zechariah write about Philistine, write about the Philistines, write about Gaza, even though it is written years after the Philistines are already gone, there is no more of them, this is a warning for the future enemies of God, future enemies of God's chosen people. So the Philistines who are no longer there, who came from the Aegean region, who invaded the Holy Land, they become a symbol. They become a symbol of a universal enemy of God's chosen people. And in that sense, the prophecies, not only of Ezekiel and Zechariah, but also of Amos and other prophets that we mentioned, they apply to the enemies of the people of Israel. Because God has chosen the people of Israel, and He will punish the enemies of his chosen people. So if we look at the modern context now of what has happened to Israel on October 7th, 2023, we saw what Hamas did, what the people of Gaza did to the Israeli people, then those prophecies are still actual. Because Hamas, the people of Gaza, have acted like the ancient Philistines. They became the enemies of God's chosen people. And the massive destruction of Gaza we see today may not be a coincidence. It may actually refer to those ancient words of the prophets. It was a warning for all the enemies of God's chosen people, even those in the future. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope you liked today's video, although the topic was quite heavy. It took me a long time to create all those maps and animations for you. You know, I'm a one-man team. I create everything myself, so all the maps you saw in this video, they were created by me and they are custom made. But it takes a long time to make them. But I hope you enjoyed them, and if you would like to support me as a creator, support my work, the best way to do it is through Patreon and PayPal. I will leave links to those sites in the description of this video, so make sure to check them out. There will be other links that you can also check out to other information about my channel. As you probably noticed, I was away for a while. I had a very busy month and I just couldn't create for you. But it looks like I'm back now, so I hope I will be creating more videos for you. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, hit that bell button. And thanks to this, I hope you will be notified when a new video comes out. So saying all of that, have a good day and see you soon. Shalom.